Another effort to find him.
John Huston are among the cast of Winter Kills, the story of a political conspiracy to assassinate the American president. And before that, highlights of today's Brazilian Grand Prix.
Here at the Rio Autodrome, the Grand Prix world has put its political house in order for round 2 of the World Championship after the drivers' strike in South Africa, which led to the cancellation of the Argentine Grand Prix. In South Africa, the superb turbocharged Renaults dominated, but 8 weeks later, there's a whole grid full of new cars at this hot sea-level circuit, which puts the turbo and normally engined cars on a more level power footing than Kyalami. They include the lightweight JPS 91s, the new Brabhams, back with Ford Cosworth engines, and new Alfa Romeos to join the highly developed Renaults, Ferraris, Williams, Marlboros and the rest. And on an anti-clockwise circuit, which, though partly resurfaced, is still appallingly bumpy in today's stiffly sprung cars, the race is going to be very, very tough on the drivers. After South Africa, the sensational Alain Prost leads the championship in his Renault from 4 times Brazilian Grand Prix winner Carlos Reutemann, René Arnoux, Niki Lauda, a superb achievement after 2 years out of racing, Keke Rosberg and John Watson. And after 2 days of practice in the sun and the heat, it's Alain Prost in pole position, over 6 seconds faster than last year, with Villeneuve second, ahead of Rosberg, Arnoux, Lauda and Reutemann sixth. 3 turbos and 3 normal engines in the top 6. Then it's world champion Nelson Piquet 7th, Pironi, Patrese and De Cesaris making up the top 10, with John Watson 12th, Nigel Mansell 14th, Derek Daly 20th and Lafitte and Cheever a disastrous 24th and 26th. But Brian Henton and Derek Warwick both failed to qualify. There's Niki Lauda, ex-double world champion. Look at the neck clamp he's got. Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham Ford. And there is Gilles Villeneuve, 6 times a Grand Prix winner in the turbocharged Ferrari. Very, very quick, second fastest in practice and therefore on the staggered front row of the grid. John Watson, winner of the British Grand Prix last year in the Marlboro MP4. There's Bernie Ecclestone, the czar of Formula One Grand Prix racing. And now it's all go almost for the 63-lap, 197-mile Brazilian Grand Prix. And it's Gilles Villeneuve who leads away from René Arnoux. Prost is going into the right-hander in 3rd position. Right with him is Keke Rosberg. And it's Villeneuve. Arnoux, Rosberg is in 3rd position. Prost is in 4th place. Pironi in the 2nd Ferrari is in 5th. And Rosberg has gone up into 2nd place. So it's a turbo leading the Williams car of the Finnish driver Keke Rosberg. Then the 2 Renaults.
Yes, that was an outstanding starting lap by Keke Rosberg. He has the power disadvantage. He's trying around the outside of Villeneuve here. He's having a real go, but the trouble is he's off the line on the slippery bit, and he's going to get swallowed up by the turbos down the straight. That's a bit unfortunate that he didn't tuck in behind the Ferrari there and get the grip he needed to get out of the corner, because yes, both Renaults have now passed him. He lost the slingshot onto the straight, but he really drove a great first couple of corners.
So there is Villeneuve in the Turbo Ferrari, leading Arnoux in the Turbo Renault. Prost in the Turbo Renault is in third position. Keke Rosberg just behind him in fourth place. Then Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham. And Pironi is still very much about the place in the second of the two Ferraris. Watch for the Scarlet car. There he is. And behind him, Nelson Piquet. But it's Villeneuve. And it is said that the Ferraris, which are much heavier than virtually all the other cars in this race, they weigh 595 kilograms, are going to have tyre trouble. Lap 1, Villeneuve, Arnoux, Prost, Rosberg, Patrese and Pironi.
Yes, and here we have Rosberg. It's just action replay. Rosberg trying to go around the outside on the corner onto the main straight, which was a great pity because it was not really the right manoeuvre when he could have touched it and got the grip. You see how slow he is out of the corner. The Renaults are coming and they're going to both swallow him up on the straight. He'd been very good on the first two corners and it rather spoilt it.
Well, the Renaults on lap 5 are absolutely magnificent. They've not only got the handling right, but the power is right. But hats off too to Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, the English engineer, who went to Ferrari in the winter to revamp their last year's chassis, which was far from ideal in terms of handling, and you can see the results. Because Gilles Villeneuve, the French-Canadian, 6 times a Grand Prix winner, is out in front. Remember what he did, but behind, look, Patrese in the Brabham, the Italian driver who drove for Arrows last year, is ahead, and look, Patrese is ahead of Rosberg and in fourth place, and there is Piquet coming up to challenge Rosberg, and is he going through? He is. So Rosberg is down 2 places all of a sudden.
Yes, Rosberg elbowed back by both Brabhams, and both Brabhams seem to be going extremely well. Here is Piquet just pulling out of the toe down the straight. The Brabham seems to be quicker on the straight marginally than the Williams, and this, of course, that straight gives it a good advantage. At the same time, the Ferrari is going very well in front, but it seems to be doing it more on par. Their chassis is a vast improvement on last year's car, as Murray rightly says, but it's still not the best. But when the Renault gets behind him on the straight, he doesn't look like he's going to pass him, and the Ferrari, despite its great weight and huge fuel load, is still more than holding its own on the straight, not only to most cars, but to the other turbos as well.
And there's only one Ferrari effectively in the running now, because Didier Pironi, who had a gigantic crash at the Paul Ricard circuit testing recently, has gone off in Brazil and has gone right down to 13th position. So it is the sole Scarlet Turbo 126C Ferrari, and the Brabhams are challenging now. Look at this. The Brabhams are up into 3rd and 4th places.
Yeah, Prost slowed there coming through that corner onto the straight. I don't know why. He seemed to go a little bit wide, and both Brabhams have nipped by him. So whether that was a mistake or whether he's got troubles, it's hard to tell. Here we see it again. Prost is the second of 2 races. He's running a little bit wide offline. I think maybe it was just a mistake. He got a bit wide, because remember, it's much more slippery out there, and so you have to slow down, and the Brabhams got inside and nipped by.
And coming towards us then, Gilles Villeneuve with René Arnoux, who needs to do well in this race to preserve his reputation, because it is said on lap 6 there, with Villeneuve, Arnoux, Patrese and Piquet in the Brabhams, and then Prost, and in the pits there, number 22 is Andrea De Cesaris in the Alfa Romeo, the Italian driver. And now, lap 9, and look at this, the first 4 very closely together, still Villeneuve out front, and if his tyres are really starting to wear, it was said that they were only going to last about 10 laps, but they're not showing any signs of problems at the moment. René Arnoux in 2nd place, then the 2 Brabhams, Riccardo Patrese ahead of the world champion Nelson Piquet, who is right in his slipstream, Alain Prost in 5th position, Keke Rosberg in 6th place, and Piquet going through and taking Patrese. So the world champion is up another place, and don't forget that Nelson Piquet is a Brazilian. He is driving in Brazil ahead of 80,000 fervently enthusiastic Brazilians.
Yes, here we see it again. Piquet just diving out of the slipstream, straightforward manoeuvre. He got in behind Patrese down the straight in perfect position, got that little hole in the air, increases the speed. Whoops. That's De Angelis having some sort of a drama. Looks as if he's just spun and rejoined.
Galileo De Angelis in the new John Player Special 91, and there's Villeneuve, now the battle for second. Arnoux and Rosberg has gone ahead of Prost. Piquet is in third position. There's the Brabham, tucked up under the wing and challenging, and Nelson Piquet going through to try and take second position, but fails. René Arnoux holds his line, and look at the gap now between Villeneuve, the leader, and that four-car battle for second place, weaving about all over the place, and Rosberg is coming up. Rosberg is coming up to try and take Patrese, and he's right up alongside him, and he is through. Rosberg then, lap 17.
Piquet is really having a real go to get past Arnoux. He's got the usual problem, of course, with the extra power of the turbo car, which takes him away down the straights, and Arnoux is using it well, but Piquet's car is obviously handling a lot better, and he's having another little stab inside there, but to no avail. If he can get by, I'm sure he'll fairly sprint away. But there, now you can see the gap just lengthen away, but Piquet's kept right in the tow this time. He's tucked in the tow. He's in position to possibly have a go.
Indeed he is, and there he goes through into second position. Then goes Nelson Piquet. Now he has just got Gilles Villeneuve ahead of him. But when I say just got Gilles Villeneuve, don't think that is not very considerable opposition. Enormous excitement in the Brabham pit. Let's look again as Nelson Piquet comes out of Arnoux' slipstream. A beautiful manoeuvre, he timed it absolutely right. And there is the gap, and Rosberg has gone past as well. So quite a few changes on that lap, but it's still Villeneuve leading.
That'll be a disappointment to Piquet to see Rosberg get past so quickly as well, because he would have been hoping for Rosberg to have a fair bit of time to get by, but the same problem, just power down the straight. Piquet had to wait quite a while before he did it, and Patrese having a go.
And the order now then is Gilles Villeneuve leading Nelson Piquet with Rosberg in third position. In fourth place it is René Arnoux, in fifth it's Patrese, and that is Eddie Cheever out of the race after an absolutely disastrous practice period. He only just made it into 26th position, and it looks as though something's wrong with his leg as across the line, lap 21, the first three are pulling away a bit. Three different makes of car in this really exciting Brazilian Grand Prix, and it is Villeneuve leading Piquet, leading Rosberg.
Yes, well, of course, now that they caught up pretty quickly to the Ferrari, but of course they're now faced with an even worse problem than the Renault. I think Villeneuve and the Ferrari will be harder to pass. He's quicker, it's a bit quicker down the straights than the Renault, and I don't think that Piquet can do to him what he managed to do.
Piquet challenging Villeneuve, first, second and third, and you'll notice they're catching Eliseo Salazar, the Chilean driver in the ATS. And we've just had news, I've been watching in the background, Niki Lauda was in 9th position, battling with Reutemann, and both Reutemann and Lauda are missing. They seem to have hit each other and gone off the circuit. So, world champion, ex-world champion Niki Lauda in the Marlborough out, Reutemann, who finished second in South Africa, out, and the leaders are past Salazar, and now they're closing up on Chico Serra, the Brazilian, in the newly painted Fittipaldi car. That's the team of Emerson Fittipaldi, the Brazilian ex-world champion in 1972 and 74. And John Watson, therefore, is closing up through the field, and the order is Villeneuve with Piquet and Rosberg. 1, 2, 3, there they are. Patrese is in 4th position. Prost is in 5th place, and up into the World Championship points position in 6th place comes John Watson in the Marlborough. And look at that battle between Rosberg and Piquet, with Villeneuve just about holding his own in the turbocharged Ferrari, as he did in Spain last year, when for lap after lap Villeneuve refused resolutely to be worried by the cars snapping at his wheels at the back to try and get past. And if Villeneuve can just hold his line. He has got superior power, and that's one of the Alfa Romeos off. It's Bruno Giacomelli, who incidentally put up the fastest lap of the race earlier on, and there, past Serra, go Villeneuve, goes Patrese, goes Rosberg, and it is still Ferrari, Brabham, Williams, not the turbocharged Brabham as in South Africa, but the Ford Cosworth-powered Brabham.
Yes, Villeneuve proving a real problem to pass. When he gets onto that main straight, he just goes away. He gets too many lengths on Piquet for him to have any sort of a real stab, because he's it's only a little tiny dab of the brakes for that very quick corner at the end of the straight. If it was a bit of a slower corner, you'd have more chance of trying to outperform him on the brakes, but he just can't quite get close enough. He's harrowing him and chasing him, trying to make him make a mistake, but Villeneuve's proved that he can drive very coolly under these conditions in the past. In Spain last year and earlier in the season, he used the power of the Ferrari well, confident that he could always put his foot down as he came out of the corner, so long as he kept his act clean going in. And that's what he's doing. And I think Piquet will be looking to try and pressure him in when there are back markers around, to maybe get a little tangle going and where a hole gets left. That's often when you get a chance.
Now, the conditions here at the Rio Autodrome are frighteningly demanding. The circuit is in a bowl. The sun is burning down. The temperature is over 30 degrees centigrade. The course is enormously bumpy, despite the fact that it has been relayed in parts. The drivers are taking an enormous battering, quite apart from the fact that they sweat enormously into their fireproof overalls, which have to be very, very hot indeed, of course. So if it is 30, 32 degrees outside the cars, just imagine what it is like in the cockpits, and imagine the pounding that the drivers are taking. The first three, Villeneuve, Piquet and Rosberg, that you see absolutely together, because there's less than 2 seconds behind them, are closing up on Jean-Pierre Jarier in the Osella.
There's at one time in Brazil, I think it was, they put a thermometer in the cockpit of the Ferrari that Reutemann was driving a few years ago, in Rio, when it was particularly hot, and they had a temperature of over 150 degrees Fahrenheit ambient in the cockpit when he was out on the track, which is quite something. And of course the drivers are wearing 3 or 4 layers of and Rosberg's having a go at Piquet here. He's gotten inside him and he's through, but he's gone wide again. He came through very quickly indeed. I think he just went a little bit wide in the corner. Piquet's grabbed the place straight back again, so that was a bit of a non-result there.
Now, this is a fight between the gritty Finnish driver, Keke Rosberg, and the world champion, Nelson Piquet. And at last, Keke Rosberg has got a car worthy of his talent. Look at it again. Keke Rosberg comes out from underneath the wing of Piquet's Brabham, goes through into second position. Villeneuve is still in the lead in the Ferrari. Rosberg drifts out wide. Nelson Piquet takes the tight inside line and immediately regains second position. Now, Keke Rosberg last season drove for Fittipaldi, and before that for the Wolf team, and the leader Villeneuve comes up and passes Jarier. And at last, Keke Rosberg has got a car in the Saudia Williams car, the Tag Williams car, which is worthy of his very considerable talents. A man of very, very considerable experience, because Rosberg, it is in his 39th Grand Prix, and he's driven in everything from Formula V, Formula Super V, Formula 2, and a lot of experience. He actually won his first Formula 1 race at the International Trophy in the wet at Silverstone years ago. There he goes. Keke Rosberg then in third position. Ahead of him, Nelson Piquet, and that is Mauro Baldi. That's the Italian driver in his first Grand Prix in the Arrows, because he didn't qualify in South Africa. And this is lap 25 in this 63-lap race. And Keke Rosberg waves his hand, having passed Jarier, still in third position behind him. Riccardo Patrese, fourth. Prost is fifth. Watson is in sixth position. In seventh place, it's Mansell.
Yes, Rosberg's driving an absolutely super race, Murray. As you say, he's always has shown himself to be a highly talented driver. He's a good competitor, and he's really attacked it this race. but in a very sensible way. He's driven very aggressively, but always with control. His first lap, if you remember, at the first 2 corners, he was in a pretty boxed position into the first corner, held onto it very hard, kept the line for the second one, passed 2 cars by the time he got halfway around the first lap, which was an exceptionally fine effort, and he's being very bold, and he's right in there fighting, and I have to suspect that the Brabham is probably performing a little bit better than his car, so he's really doing very well indeed. He's completely, in fact, outperformed Carlos Reutemann, his teammate, who didn't qualify as well as him and has struggled to keep up during the race and didn't really show at all. So Rosberg's really filling in the Williams team where Alan Jones has left off straight away.
And let us remember that Niki Lauda is out of the race, Reutemann is out of the race, Pironi is out of contention, and so that's going to make quite a change for World Championship positions. Arnoux has slipped right down, but Alain Prost, who won the South African Grand Prix to get 9 valuable points, is still in 5th position and therefore scoring 2 points at the moment if he keeps on. But the battle for the lead rages between Villeneuve, there he goes, Piquet and Rosberg. This is probably the last but one race of the marvellous Williams FW07 Patrick Head designed car, because the new car, the 08, has been tested at Brands Hatch, where it proved to be sensationally fast, and I think the 07, which Keke Rosberg is driving now, will be at Long Beach the next Grand Prix, and then for the San Marino Grand Prix the 08, and look at the way that they've closed right up, absolutely together.
Yeah, still bunched nose to tail, but still looks slightly stalemate, although Rosberg is now pretty close to Piquet. He might be in a position to have a go. He's having a go, but not quite. It's too much of a dab on the brakes, really, and he's not as quick down the straight as the Brabham of Piquet. Piquet managed to pass him quite well from a well-placed toe like that, and he was unable to retaliate.
Bernie Ecclestone and Sylvia, the girl in the pit there, is Nelson Piquet's girlfriend. Goes all around the world watching, and it's going to be a time of tremendous excitement. 80,000 race-mad Brazilians watching their hero, the world champion, and he's challenging Villeneuve right up to Villeneuve's rear wheel. And if Villeneuve drifts out wide, this could be, as they start another lap, this could be Piquet's opportunity to get through. But Rosberg is right with Piquet, and he's challenging for second place. He's come out and he's right up alongside. And this time, Rosberg is through. Is he going to stay ahead? This is exactly the same point where Rosberg passed Piquet, and this time he has succeeded in staying there. Rosberg second, Piquet third, Villeneuve leads.
Here we see it again, Rosberg coming up the inside. This time, the last time, you remember, he was a little bit ragged under braking, and he was always a bit messy. This time he was nice and controlled inside, held the line, slowed Piquet down, and was able to give himself a good blast out of the corner on full power on the right line. Perfectly executed overtaking manoeuvre.
And whilst this battle is going on in this searing heat here at Rio on lap 29 out of 63, Riccardo Patrese is still there in 4th place in only his 2nd Grand Prix in the Brabham. His 1st Grand Prix in the Brabham Ford, because in South Africa it was the Turbo. There he is in 4th position.
Now we can see if Piquet can get by, because he was in perfect position then, the same way. He is quicker down the straight, but Rosberg's made him go around the outside, and Piquet's done it. Fine piece of driving. He's got a definite straight line advantage, because Rosberg could not do that to him when he was in exactly the same position earlier, but nevertheless he was very brave and got right round the outside. Here it is again, and you see Rosberg start to move to the left-hand side of the track so that Piquet can't get the easy way around, which is to go down the inside, but Piquet's got enough momentum. He's got half a length almost as they get into the braking area. He brakes nice and late because he's on the better line, and he nips around the outside.
Well, I was going to say that while the two behind, Piquet and Rosberg, were tripping each other up, Villeneuve was having a fairly unflurried race. But I'm certainly not going to now, because look, Piquet is right back with Villeneuve. They're on the 30th lap, which is just a whisker short of half distance in this 63-lap race. So now Piquet really is cramming on the pressure. He's right up with Gilles Villeneuve, and if Villeneuve puts as much as a wheel wrong, Nelson Piquet could be through and into the lead. But remember that in the Spanish Grand Prix last year, Gilles Villeneuve had exactly the same position. And Piquet now is going to try and go around the outside, and Villeneuve's off. Villeneuve's off. He's lost it. He put his wheels on the grass. He's off. Is he all right? Let's watch and see if he gets out. Yes, he is, and Piquet leads with Rosberg second.
Oh, and he nearly took Piquet with him. You see, so I saw smoke coming from Piquet's tyres. Here we see it again. Piquet does a very good thing. He's really harassing him. He goes down to try and take him around the outside, and Villeneuve is panicked into the mistake that Piquet wanted. Although it nearly cost Piquet the race too. You saw his brakes lock up, the smoke come off his tyres as he stopped to let Villeneuve pass. There's Villeneuve, perfectly all right, but I think very cross with himself, because that really was a little mistake. Just caught the grass when he was probably looking the other way at Piquet. Wheels lost his braking effect, and that's the end of the race for poor Villeneuve.
Well, we've seen Villeneuve walk home a few times. He never gives up, and sometimes he goes off, and he's done it this time. So lap 32, there are the positions. Piquet leading Rosberg, with Patrese now up into third position. Alain Prost to fourth, Watson to fifth, and there is Watson chasing Prost. And in the background, Nigel Mansell in the JPS 91 is in sixth position, and the Englishman is in the points in his first race in the new JPS, and that's Patrese. Patrese, he spun off, and that means to say that Prost is past him, Watson is past him, and there is Mansell in sixth position, coming up to try and take Patrese, but Patrese is on his way.
Patrese, having spun once, he then spun the car again with the back wheels on the grass in his attempts to get it going. He was all over the place. He was weaving about still, nearly went round again as he came back onto the track. So that was very messy. Here it is again. He's just completed a spin, and now he spins it round again when really he shouldn't have done. Backs it across the track, and was really in a terrible mess because he lost his grip. And now this is where nearly loses it again. He's right across the track. He's in a real mess. And meanwhile, Nigel Mansell is bearing down from behind. Patrese has gone into the pits.
That's look at it. Patrese slumped over the wheel. I'm going to hazard a guess that it's heat exhaustion. I would be amazed if it wasn't. He looked bemused when he had that spin. He wasn't at all happy when he was regaining the circuit. And he looked to me as though he was half out. I've never seen a driver slumped over the wheel quite like that before. And I can tell you that the heat is really terrific at Rio. Now, Nelson Piquet, being a Brazilian, is used to it, although he has been away from the Brazilian heat for a long time, racing in Europe, and he hasn't been back to Brazil. There's Patrese being carried out of the car. Look, you could just see his helmet hung over. The Brabham mechanics have carried him into the pits. They're taking his helmet off. And obviously, the heat is really getting at the drivers. Prost in third place, then behind Rosberg and Piquet. Watson fourth, then Mansell, and up into sixth place comes the German driver, Manfred Winkelhock, in the ATS, driving in only his second Formula One Grand Prix. We are looking at Alain Prost, who is in third position. Behind him is John Watson. Prost, the winner in South Africa, the man who has been tipped for the world champion, and there is John Watson in the Marlboro MP4, who has really got his form back in this John Barnard designed car, which he won the British Grand Prix in last year. Incidentally, John Watson spun off very badly at Rio last year in a wet and very, very unpleasant race, but he's very much keeping the car on the island in 1982. John Watson, Mansell chasing him in fifth position now, Winkelhock in sixth place. And there goes the Englishman, and here comes the ATS of, it's Salazar, Eliseo Salazar, the Chilean, who was in ninth position. Don't forget his teammate Winkelhock in the team which Alistair Caldwell, the Englishman, is now managing with an iron hand, and the results are certainly showing. But it looks as though Salazar's race is run as we look at the race leader, Nelson Piquet, who already has 6 magnificent... And that's Serra's car, Chico Serra, the Fittipaldi. New car, new colour scheme, and it looks as though they're going to need another one for Long Beach. Lap 47, 63 lap race. Piquet leads, Rosberg second, and the gap is of the order of 2.5 to 3 seconds. It doesn't look it there, but it is on the stopwatch, I promise you. And watch for Alain Prost coming round the corner in third position.
Yes, these two drivers out front now are really having a go. I think that they seem to be locked in a stalemate situation with Piquet in front, obviously doing his best to get away to make a break, but I should think they're pretty tired by now, and he's really having to pile it on. And of course Rosberg likewise is doing everything he can to hang on. I mean, it's really like long distance running races. They're Prost in third place, fallen back a little bit, but still very much in contention, and it won't need much to go wrong for Prost to pounce. But the two out front are both driving absolutely on the limit to try and settle this race one way or another, and the physical strain must be absolutely huge.
Prost that we are looking at third place. Behind him, Watson. There is Bernie Ecclestone, just calmly watching his man, and there is his man, Nelson Piquet, completing another lap. Fifth position is Mansell. Sixth position is Alboreto, who has got ahead of Winkelhock. And the gap now between Nelson Piquet on lap 60 in this 63-lap race and Keke Rosberg, who is second, is over 10 seconds. There is John Watson in fourth place. So Keke Rosberg has either voluntarily decided to settle for second place, or maybe Frank Williams has given him the signal to say stay where you are. Either way, it looks as though we are watching the winner.
Yes, there's Nelson Piquet. You see how tired he is. His head on the side of the cockpit there had just fallen over. Here it is again. Now he's going on a left-hand corner and his head just lolls over to the right. There he is. He can no longer hold it up. Now the neck gets a terrible bashing. It's one of the worst areas of sheer physical exhaustion. When I first started Grand Prix racing, I had terrible trouble with my neck, but within 4 months of driving Formula One cars, it had developed so much more muscle to cope with that my shirts, I had to throw both my shirts away and get a new one because my neck had grown an inch.
Well, Nelson Piquet, I think, needs some new shirts because he had exactly the same trouble at the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, but he hasn't got far to go. He is on the last lap now. He's got a 10 seconds lead. He can pace himself if he can just stay conscious, and he only just managed to stay conscious at the Caesars Palace Grand Prix at Las Vegas at the end of last year when he won the World Championship. And there are now only 12 cars left in the running. Either the mice have got at the machinery or the heat has got at the drivers. All the way down, there are 14 cars out, 12 left. But here is the one that really matters, and the crowd is understandably going berserk. They're going to see a Brazilian winning the Brazilian Grand Prix, and the Brazilian is the world champion, as was their previous hero, Emerson Fittipaldi. And it's going to be a magnificent and apt finish, which will give Nelson Piquet his revenge for not finishing in the points last year. And Nelson Piquet wins the Brazilian Grand Prix. The mechanics go out to greet him home, and Sylvia is understandably delighted. So the Brazilian Grand Prix of 1982 was won by Nelson Piquet, with Rosberg second, Prost third, Watson fourth, Mansell fifth, and Michele Alboreto a fine sixth position. And that makes some differences in the World Championship. Prost still leads, but Piquet goes up to second place. Rosberg is third, and Reutemann is fourth, with Arnoux and Watson tying for fifth position. So the crowd has seen the result they wanted, but Piquet up on the rostrum is looking very, very dodgy indeed. He's fainting. Rosberg and Prost hold him up. And this is sensational. The race winner has fainted, and he's disappearing behind the rostrum. But Nelson Piquet has undoubtedly won. They can't take that away from him. Rosberg second, Prost is third, and with the ambulance waiting, Piquet gets back onto the rostrum, and we look forward now to the Long Beach Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time.